Welcome to Global Risk Community Chat. Today our guest is Brittany Nevins. I'm very happy to have you here today, Brittany. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, likewise. So before we get into our topic, can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to be here. So my name is Brittany Nevins, and I am the Captive Insurance Economic Development Director for the state of Vermont. And Vermont is a captive insurance domicile, meaning that Vermont licenses and regulates captive insurance companies from around the US and around the world. And we have roughly 30 staff members in the Department of Financial Regulation that are experts in the captive industry and solely dedicated to regulating captives. So I essentially market Vermont to the industry, to businesses, and try to recruit businesses to license their captive in Vermont.
Sounds very interesting. So then let's get into our topic. So what exactly is captive insurance? Because of course I hear you mention that. So let's get into that then.
Yeah, definitely. Not many people know what it is. So I'm happy to raise awareness about it on your platform. So in a nutshell, captive insurance is when a company or another entity forms its own insurance company for its own risk. Companies with a similar risk can form together and create group captives or risk retention group captives. A captive insurance company is owned and controlled by its insureds. So that's really the main difference between captive insurance and the traditional insurance market. Companies from virtually any industry can form a captive insurance company. And some of the most common risks that are insured in a captive are professional liability, general liability, auto, cyber, property, and workers' compensation. But there's a lot of different risks that you can insure in a captive. And I'll just briefly go over some of the characteristics of a captive insurance company and why someone would want to form one. So a captive is a licensed insurance company. So it is licensed and regulated in a domicile, and companies choose to be licensed and regulated. They're formed to insure or reinsure the risks of its owners or related parties of their choosing. They're located onshore or offshore, so the US is considered onshore. They are generally licensed in only one domicile. So in Vermont, we have many captives that are multinational captives that may be in Europe or other areas, and they have chosen to license in Vermont, but do their business around the world. And captives are formed for a variety of reasons. They can increase control over insurance purchasing decisions. They can reduce total cost of risk. They can provide coverage unavailable or unaffordable in the open market. So that's a really big one. When a company, their insurance becomes more expensive or they're unable to find it, that might be a great time to consider forming a captive. They can create premium stability and increase control over claims processes. So that's kind of in a nutshell what it is. There's obviously so much more detail we could get into, but that's kind of the high level overview.
I think it's a very good overview. As a person that doesn't know much about it, I already, understood a little bit of the basics of it, I guess, or I got an idea of what it is. So of course, you're from the state of Vermont. So what exactly is the role of Vermont in this whole process, or, maybe doing a captive insurance?
Yeah, so Vermont is considered a domicile. So we license and regulate these captive insurance companies. And there's actually quite a few domiciles in the United States and around the world. And they have to have captive enabling legislation to license these captive insurance companies. So as I said, we have a robust staff dedicated solely to captive insurance and licensing and regulating those. And Vermont, the reason why it's seen as a leader is because of that expertise and that stability that we have in our domicile. So Vermont is actually #1 in the US and 3rd globally in terms of licensed captives to date. Vermont has been licensing captives for over 40 years and has licensed 1,271 captives to date. And last year was actually our fourth highest year of growth in our over 40-year history. And this year we're already surpassing that pace. So we're in what's called a hard market. So a lot of that is driven by the traditional insurance market, raising rates or choosing to not provide coverage anymore. So it's really driven an increase in the formation of captive insurance companies. And Vermont is also the leading domicile globally for risk retention group captive formations. We have licensed captives of many different types and sizes. There's actually over 10 types of captives, so won't get into that, but 43 of the Fortune 100 companies have captives in Vermont, and 18 of the Dow Jones 30 companies have captives in Vermont. So about half of those companies have captives licensed in Vermont. And we have over $30 billion in gross written premium in 2021 and nearly $193 billion in assets that are within the captives in Vermont. And just to touch a little bit more on kind of what makes Vermont a leader, one of the reasons why Vermont has been so successful is because of the support of our legislature. So every year, the Vermont Captive Insurance Association, with feedback from Vermont staff, presents a captive bill with changes proposed to state statute. And each year the bill has great support from the legislature. So this has really allowed Vermont to keep pace with the changing needs of the captive insurance industry. And that association is actually the largest captive insurance association, and they're based right here in Burlington, Vermont. And they have a annual conference, which is happening next week, which is really exciting, that brings in nearly 1,000 captive professionals and risk managers from around the country and world. So yeah, that kind of explains it a bit. We've got captive service providers, so those who provide all the different essential services to captives. They are right here in Vermont. So that provides a lot of support for captive insurance companies to thrive, because all of those resources are right here in our domicile.
Thank you for sharing that as well. First of all, good luck with the event next week. Sounds really exciting. Other than that, Vermont sounds like really I guess the best place to start getting or think about getting a captive license. So maybe some of our listeners are thinking about that. So what would be maybe some takeaway points or next steps they can, take to, get started with it, or, maybe to learn more?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think what we say a lot is definitely companies should do their research and look into all the different kinds of domiciles and really determine which ones might be the best for them. So we definitely don't claim to be the best fit for everybody, but we definitely have a great track record, and so we're always happy to sit down and talk with anybody who wants to learn more or has questions, and often we'll do a preliminary meeting with our regulatory leadership team to really talk through whether or not Vermont is the right fit for them, and that helps everybody save time and resources too. So it's a very open environment in that sense, and very supportive. Yeah, I think really just the key takeaways are to think about, how you're providing insurance and where you're getting your insurance, and to think about, is that serving you and the long-term purposes of your company? And if it's not, or maybe you could do better, or keep those investments within your own company, this might be a really great solution for you. And it does take a bit of time to build it and all of that, but definitely start considering looking into it. And I'm available to chat. Our website is vermontcaptive.com, and you'll find my bio and contact information on there. So really looking forward to connecting with anybody who's interested in learning more.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. I hope that you will, of course, from our audience, maybe get some people interested and sit down to talk. So yeah,
Great.
with that being said, unfortunately, we have run out of our time for today. So once again, thank you so much. I think it is not a topic that we come across very often, but it was a great introduction to what it is and for whom it might also be, a good choice to consider or, think about. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Likewise, we really appreciate guests like you. So, well, have a nice day.
Thank you, you too.